You see, the tragedy of our modern way of living is that we mistake performance for presence and politeness for depth. We have become men who smile too much, agree too easily, and say yes when our souls scream no, all in the name of being kind to women. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. Is it really kindness, or is it cowardice in disguise? We tiptoe, flatter, and avoid conflict, not out of love, but out of fear, fear of being disliked, fear of losing access, fear of not being enough, and this is where the sickness lies, because when you show up inauthentically, when you offer words soaked in sugar but empty of spirit, you are not offering love, you are offering manipulation. You're hoping that by being the nice guy, you'll be chosen, but in reality, you've already abandoned yourself. So I say, stop being kind to women, not because you should be cruel, but because kindness without soul, without presence, without honesty, is hollow. It's not noble, it's noise. Women do not need your worship. They do not need your self-erasure. They need you to be real. They crave the presence of a man who is anchored, not swayed by every smile, not pretending to agree just to keep the peace. True respect is not about making yourself small. True connection is not about approval, it's about authenticity. When you finally stop performing, when you stop editing yourself to fit into someone's expectations, that's when you appear. That's when she sees you, not the mask, not the act, but you, and perhaps for the first time, there is space for a real relationship to emerge. You see, the game is not to be kind. The game is to be awake, because if you live your life trying to win points for politeness, you will die having never truly connected. So this is the question I leave you with. Are you brave enough to stop being nice, so you can finally become real? Kindness without depth is often a subtle form of dishonesty, and many of us fall into this trap, believing that by being superficially kind, we are doing the right thing. But what is kindness really? Is it simply agreeing with someone to avoid discomfort? Or is it a deeper, more authentic presence that recognizes the humanity of the other person? True kindness isn't just about smiling and saying the right things. It is about being present with someone, not merely as an act of pleasing, but as an honest engagement with their true self. When kindness lacks depth, it becomes an empty gesture, a transaction rather than a genuine exchange. It's easy to fall into the habit of performing kindness, especially in relationships, where we might say yes when we mean no, or smile when we feel frustration. In these moments, kindness loses its power, for it is no longer coming from a place of genuine care, but rather from a place of trying to control or manipulate the situation for our own comfort. This form of kindness is not about the other person, but about our need to feel accepted, to avoid conflict, and to preserve our image. It's a mask we wear to keep everything nice, but in doing so, we sacrifice the very connection we seek. To truly be kind, we must show up without pretenses, without the need for approval, and without a hidden agenda. Kindness, in its truest form, can't be faked. It comes from a deep well of self-awareness and authenticity, where we acknowledge both the light and shadow within ourselves and others. Only then does kindness become a gift, free from expectation and full of understanding, allowing for true connection. When kindness becomes real, it doesn't seek to be noticed. It simply flows, untainted by the need for validation, and in that flow, it touches the heart. Being nice to women without true understanding is often a form of manipulation, whether intentional or not. In many situations, men go out of their way to appear charming, agreeable, and accommodating because they believe it is the path to winning affection, approval, or validation. But this kind of kindness, where everything is done with an underlying expectation of something in return, is not kindness at all. It's a transactional approach to relationships, where the real goal is not to create genuine connection, but to fulfill a need within oneself. You might hold a door open or buy flowers, thinking that these acts of kindness will earn you a particular reaction. But what happens when kindness is offered not as a gift, but as a calculated move to gain favor? The result is a dynamic where the kindness is no longer an act of selflessness. It becomes part of an unspoken negotiation. The subtle message is, I am kind to you because I expect something in return. This kind of approach turns the other person into an object to be appeased or won over, rather than a whole human being with their own desires, needs, and autonomy. When kindness is rooted in manipulation, it often leads to frustration and dissatisfaction. The person on the receiving end senses the underlying agenda, even if it's not explicitly stated. Women, just like anyone else, are not interested in being the recipients of kindness that is merely a means to an end. They want authenticity, respect, and mutual understanding, not gestures that are driven by ulterior motives. In relationships, true kindness comes from a place of equality and respect, where both parties are willing to give without expecting anything in return. This allows for genuine connections to form, based on mutual admiration and shared values, not on the assumption that kindness equals reward. When we offer kindness freely, without the need for anything in return, that is when we begin to form the deepest and most lasting bond. Women do not want worship. This may seem controversial at first, especially in a world where many men are taught to place women on a pedestal, to revere them as something fragile, untouchable, or above reproach. But the truth is, this kind of reverence is not what women seek, nor is it what leads to authentic connection. When we place women on a pedestal, we do not treat them as equals. Instead, we diminish their humanity. We create a space where they are expected to be flawless, and in doing so, we set up an impossible standard that no one, woman or man, can live up to. Women do not need to be worshipped from afar or put on a pedestal to be admired. They need to be seen for who they are: complex, multifaceted individuals with strengths, flaws, dreams, and fears, just like men. Reverence without understanding often leads to disconnection, because it puts a barrier between two people. It fosters a sense of superiority in one and inferiority in the other. Worship is an act of distance, not closeness. It creates a false dynamic where one person is elevated to an unreachable height, while the other person is left looking up, never able to truly connect. Women, like everyone else, want to be treated as human beings, not as ideals or symbols to be admired from afar. They want to be respected for their intellect, their ambitions, their experiences, and their flaws, not for the image we create in our minds. True connection and respect come when we stop idolizing and start engaging, when we let go of the fantasy of perfection and embrace the reality of shared humanity. Women are not meant to be worshipped. They are meant to be understood, respected, and loved as equals, without the need for artificial pedestalization or unrealistic expectations. Respect is not the same as pleasing. There is a subtle difference, often overlooked, between respecting someone and simply trying to make them happy. In many relationships, men may think that being agreeable or doing everything to avoid conflict is the best way to show respect to a woman. But this approach often misses the mark, because it is driven by the desire to be liked or to maintain a sense of peace, rather than by a genuine appreciation for who the other person is. True respect means recognizing and honoring the full complexity of another human being, not just their likes and dislikes, but their strengths, their weaknesses, their boundaries, and their individuality. When respect is mistaken for the act of pleasing, it becomes shallow. Pleasing someone might mean doing what they want, saying what they want to hear, or avoiding disagreement at all costs. But this is not a path to true intimacy. It's a path to disconnection, because it keeps both people in a space of performative behavior, where neither is truly seen for who they are. Women, like anyone else, don't want to be placated or manipulated through shallow gestures or words. They want to be treated as equals, with the freedom to express their thoughts, feelings, and desires without fear of judgment or reprisal. Respect means being willing to disagree, to challenge, and to engage in honest conversations, even when it's uncomfortable. It means seeing the other person as a whole and treating them with integrity, rather than trying to mold them into something that satisfies your own needs or expectations. Respect is not about giving in to every demand or avoiding conflict at all costs. It's about standing in your own truth while allowing the other person the same freedom. When respect is rooted in truth, it creates a foundation for a relationship that is strong, honest, and deeply connected. Being real is far kinder than being nice. In a world that often values politeness over authenticity, it can feel like being nice is the only acceptable way to interact with others. We are taught to smile, agree, and avoid confrontation as a way of keeping the peace and preserving harmony. However, this type of niceness is a shallow version of connection. It is based on fear, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of making someone uncomfortable. But this kind of fear-based kindness doesn't allow for true intimacy. When we try too hard to be nice, we hide our true selves behind a mask. We suppress our thoughts, our feelings, and our desires because we think that being nice means being agreeable and unobjectionable. The problem with this is that we end up sacrificing our authenticity, and with it, the possibility of real connection. Being real, on the other hand, means showing up fully as yourself, without pretenses or agendas. It means saying what you believe, even when it's uncomfortable, and being open to the vulnerability that comes with that. When you're real, you're not trying to manage how others perceive you. You are simply expressing your truth, and in doing so, you invite others to do the same. This is where true kindness lies. It's not in the surface-level gestures or pleasing words, but in the courage to be open, honest, and vulnerable. When you stop hiding behind a facade of niceness, you allow people to see the real you, and that's when deeper connections are formed. The world needs more realness, more honesty, and more authenticity. It's far kinder to show up as you are than to pretend to be something you're not. When we embrace this, we stop wasting time on superficial niceness and start building relationships that are grounded in mutual understanding and genuine care. Freedom, not approval, leads to connection. In relationships, there is often an unspoken desire for validation, an internal drive to be liked, to be accepted, to gain approval. This desire is universal, but it can become a barrier to true connection when it dominates our behavior. We mold ourselves into what we believe others want or expect, often suppressing our true selves in the process. We become conditioned to seek external approval, whether from a partner, a friend, or society at large. But what if approval isn't the answer to building a meaningful relationship? What if true connection arises not from being liked, but from being free? Freedom in relationships means embracing each other as individuals, without the need for constant reassurance or validation. It means giving yourself and the other person the space to be fully who they are, without the pressure to fit into preconceived roles or expectations. When we let go of the need for approval, we stop performing and start living authentically. We stop trying to fit into a mold and start creating something real. It's in this space of freedom that true connection flourishes. Instead of seeking approval, we begin to appreciate each other for our unique qualities, for our differences, and for our shared humanity. This is when relationships move beyond superficial exchanges and into something much deeper, when both people are free to be themselves, without fear of judgment, without the need for constant affirmation. There is space for true intimacy to grow. It's not about what you can do to make someone like you. It's about showing up as your full, unfiltered self and allowing the other person the same freedom. In this space, connection is not something to be sought or earned, but something that arises naturally, effortlessly, when both people are free to be who they are. In the end, it's not about trying to be kind in a way that pleases or earns approval. It's about embracing the fullness of who you are and offering that to others, without the need for manipulation, without the fear of rejection. True kindness, real respect, and deep connection are born from authenticity, not from performing for validation. When we stop pretending to be someone we're not, when we stop worshiping ideals and start engaging with the raw reality of each other's humanity, that's when true relationships emerge. So, instead of aiming to be nice in a shallow, transactional way, strive to be real. Strive to be free. It's only then that you can connect with others in a meaningful, lasting way, not because you've tried to win them over, but because you've allowed them to see you and yourself to see them as equals. Let go of the need to be liked and embrace the freedom to be truly seen. In that space of authenticity, the deepest and most genuine connections will arise.